Hey, movie fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Uncharted Media Podcast. This is episode 117. So the Super Bowl just wrapped up over this past weekend. As much as it pains me to say, Tom Brady has, in my mind, solidified himself as the greatest quarterback of all time, as much as I don't want to admit it. So, because we're in our denial, we're going to talk about movie athletes instead, not just football. All fictional athletes are welcome to the Uncharted Media Podcast. That's what we're going to be talking about in honor of the Super Bowl. Before we get into all that, Michael, how you doing tonight?
I'm well, sir. We had an adventure trying to get here. We did 101 ways to not do a podcast tonight. So thank you for bearing with me. I'm doing well. A little bit flustered at the moment because I was frustrated for a while. But audio issues aside, I am doing well. Thank you, buddy. We have a lot to talk about tonight. It's a privilege to be back.
So yeah, off the top, I got a couple things that I've been watching. Some good and some not so good, but not as bad as I was expecting them to be. First of all, Heather and I don't know what compelled us to. Was more just kind of sick of seeing it in my HBO Max queue, so we finally watched it. Little Shop of Horrors. I had seen the musical when our college did it, primarily because one of my communications professor was the evil dentist, and we're like, oh, we have to see that, because he's not the type of professor that you would think would be in a musical or a play at all, but he was great. The movie was pretty good. I'm not the biggest musical fan, but good, catchy music, great choreography. Didn't know going into it that it was directed by Frank Oz, so I was like, that's a win in my book. Frank Oz, Rick Moranis once again, just proving he's just a national treasure, and I cannot wait for his return. And the other one that we watched might surprise you, Michael. Again, flipping through HBO Max, got kind of bored. Not gonna lie, I started watching Da Vinci Code because it's been on my bucket list of, I need to watch this at some point, because all I remember about this is just the controversy that the church got all mad about with the Da Vinci Code. I'm not gonna lie, I turned it off after 10 minutes because the movie took itself way too seriously of, he's the greatest crime solver ever. I'm just like, okay, you're kind of full of yourself right now. It's just, I wasn't feeling it. So, I'm sure I'll go back to it at some point. I put on X-Men Dark Phoenix instead because I'm a completionist, and I haven't seen that or X-Men Apocalypse yet because I'd heard they're bad. I'm here to report that it's kind of true. I haven't seen X-Men Apocalypse yet, but I was expecting more of a dumpster fire for Dark Phoenix. It really wasn't as bad as I was expecting it to be. However, I'm not going to say it was good. Heather and I were remarking the whole time, and I felt bad because, believe it or not, this was the first X-Men movie Heather has seen. So I'm like trying to.
Well,
that's
a good thing.
I'm trying to explain the whole timeline to her, and she's like, "Well, in this timeline," she's like, "What do you mean in this timeline?" I'm like, "It goes 1, 2, 3, spin-off, prequel, combined, sequel, whatever." She's like, I think I track. I'm like, it's just like Back to the Future, except way more complicated. But both of us are watching Dark Phoenix, and it's really not that bad, but both of us, even come from Heather, who had not seen any of the X-Men, it was blatantly obvious that literally everyone in this movie was phoning it in. Like, they could not give a crap at all, except for two people, James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender. Like, as soon as they came on screen, I was just like, oh, thank goodness we have actors that'll actually try. And they did. They had no reason to try whatsoever, because this movie's really not that great. It's not nearly as bad as I was expecting it to be. I was expecting this to be like a dumpster fire, one of the worst comic book movies I've ever seen. It's not awful. It's just really forgettable, and no one's trying at all. There's also no real logic of, like, why is Jean Grey mad sometimes, and why is she not? But the big question that I always was scratching my head is, Beast is in this movie. Why is he human sometimes, and why is he fur monster sometimes? And he could just switch. Did I miss something with X-Men Apocalypse? Am I that out of touch with the older X-Men that I forget what happened there? Or was it just Nicholas Hoult didn't want to wear the makeup, and so he's human, just like Jennifer Lawrence for most of this? Lucky for her, though, she at least got killed off, spoiler alert, super early, because she refused to be in another movie. It wasn't awful, but you could tell no one gave a crap about this movie. It's like when you put your 2 weeks in at work, that last week, you just don't care.
Yeah, well, I'll say that for your listeners, this was the movie that our mutual friend Dan and I were fortunate enough to see at a actual Hollywood premiere.
That's right, you did.
Yeah, so Dan won a contest through Twitter, and the contest was all expenses paid. 3 days in LA, 2 nights at a 5-star hotel. Upon which we rode, and we had a driver pick us up and take us to the premiere on the red carpet. Like Entertainment Tonight was there. I saw one of the Russo brothers. I didn't see Jennifer Lawrence, but I saw James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, and Nicholas Hoult. And we had really good seats at the El Capitan theater. We were at the Chinese theater. We were at the Chinese in downtown in West Hollywood. And it was I could talk about that experience. You could have me on just to talk about that. But that was the movie. And Dan had never seen any of them in this timeline. And literally the credits roll. He turns to me and says, "Well, that was a snoozer." I'll never forget. And the thing is, we had tickets to the after party. So we went to a Hollywood after party.
And it still sucked.
It was still terrible.
Like, you guys were buttered up like nobody could be buttered up, and you still didn't like it. Like, the movie. The experience, I'm sure, was fantastic. But
it was eye-opening, but yeah, no one was excited to be there. Like, it was like if prom was held in somebody's basement. Like, that's what it felt like.
I'm just getting vibes of, Michael, do you remember Big Fat Liar with Paul Giamatti and Frankie Muniz? I'm getting vibes of, like, when they all go to, what's the fake movie with Urkel and the chicken? They go to that after party, and they're just like, that stunk. Like, everyone's talking about how bad the movie was at the after party, and everyone's like, that was just bad. That's what I'm picturing your after party experience being like for X-Men Dark Phoenix. Again, take all that aside. Do you think it's really that bad or just forgettable?
It's not forgettable for me, but I'm coming from a different perspective. I will always remember this movie for all of the wrong reasons. It's just not good.
Mm-hmm.
It had so much money behind it. It had a great cast. The lore. That's the thing, is the drop off. Like, between First Class is just so well done.
Different director, not a first time director too.
No, yeah, exactly. And then Apocalypse was like it's kind of like the reverse James Bond. You had First Class, then you had Days of Future Past, which was insanely good, and then you
had my favorite. Days of Future Past is still my favorite.
Yeah, and then you had this massive drop off here with Apocalypse. Like, Apocalypse, I still find enjoyable. It's just weird. It doesn't feel like it belongs in the same universe, and you'll get that when you watch it. And then this one, it's like, what the heck was going on? Like, it doesn't make any sense. That's why it was confusing to me, is because it's like, I actually like this universe, and for that film to kind of just not, like, they didn't invest. I mean, they invested the money, but I don't know why. I'd have to go back and track, like, the developmental hell this movie went through. But
it had a bunch of delays, like at least 2 different delays, I think. One of them was caused because, if I remember correctly, the original ending they felt was too similar to the ending of Captain Marvel. So that's why everything takes place in that train in a very small, condensed location, so as not to copy Captain Marvel. Supposedly, that's one of the reasons it was delayed. As bad as this movie was, it's not awful. I'm not gonna lie, I still got really sentimental at the end when Magneto shows up with the chess set, going, "This is the last time we're probably gonna see these guys together." Or, segueing us into our main news topics, is it the last time that we're going to see the characters from X-Men Dark Phoenix when we saw them? Or is something else on the horizon sooner rather than later? As it seems like WandaVision, we're going to be talking about this for a little bit, so spoiler alert if you are not 100% caught up with WandaVision through episode 5 at this point. Because, one of the main actors on WandaVision, Elizabeth Olsen, was recently asked in an interview if since it's a Disney Plus show like The Mandalorian, if WandaVision would have a similar cameo to the level of a Luke Skywalker, to which she replied, yes. And as the internet is prone to do, it just lit up with speculation, especially given what happened in the most recent episode. Now, unfortunately, I was not 100% shocked by what happened at the end of episode 5 because it had been leaked. There have been some serious leaks that happened, and supposedly Marvel's taking, like, legal action. But I wasn't expecting it in episode 5. It's supposed to be in episode 6 that character that shows up. So again, massive spoiler alert, because in order to talk about what we're going to talk about, we have to dip into spoilers here. So, spoilers coming in 5, 4, 3, 2... So, we have a new Pietro, don't we?
Yes.
We have Quicksilver, and I'm not going to lie, I know it wasn't him, but my first thought when you see the back of his head and it's the silver hair, I didn't think, oh, it's Pietro it's Quicksilver. I thought, oh, is that Wade from Ready Player One? My brain was just not working that day, because like the haircut looked exactly like the haircut with the jacket looked exactly like Wade's avatar in Ready Player One, and I don't know why that was the first thing that came to my mind instead.
Okay, that's hilarious.
But it's not Aaron Taylor Johnson's Quicksilver. It was Evan Peters' Quicksilver, which, coming back to Dark Phoenix, how disrespectful were they to that character in that movie? It was just, oh yeah, you got injured. You're out for the whole movie. Guys, I'm fine. Tis but a scratch. Nope, you're out for the whole movie. You could solve everything really, really quickly, so we're just going to bench you. But this has opened up a world of possibilities, so that's where we're going to kind of break down this segment of what do we think of the Evan Peters thing? What do we think his role is? And if or who we think this Luke Skywalker cameo is, because there's some thinking out there that Evan Peters is the cameo. Like, this is, holy crap, we have a former Fox X-Men character. I'm not entirely convinced that he is the Luke Skywalker type cameo. But before we get into that, Michael, what was your initial reaction, and do you think he's the cameo?
Yeah, that was, it's very strange. Like, the way they are doing this show it's beyond anything like the other. It goes beyond any sort of storytelling they've tried to do before, and it keeps you guessing. And I've had a blast so far because this was the show I was looking forward to the least.
Same.
Like, I had no desire because the way they marketed it, and they hid the fact that, hey, there is something wrong. At least in the initial advertising, it's like, oh, okay, like they have powers. Like, it honestly looked like it was a joke. And I was like, okay, it could be a cute ride, and I'm just like, I just don't want to get involved. But then it's like the more they got into the marketing, it's like, wait a minute, there's more than meets the eye here. Like this is it kept me curious. So as they've been progressing through the story, when we got to this point, knowing that her brother is something that she had talked about in earlier episodes, for me, I do miss the fact that we have never ever gone back with Wanda, and she's never talked about it. So it has been gratifying as a fan to see her character still deal with that loss. Like, I think it's really important for her. So when I saw the back of the head, I was like, whoa, like they really bring back Aaron Taylor Johnson. Of course, then her reaction makes it seem like that should be him. But then, but she's reacting with the same type of like shock and awe as if it was him. Of course, then you have Kat Dennings. I think Kat Dennings saying she recast him.
Yes,
and
which
so,
I thought was a very clever line.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, like that's very great. And I don't know. I honestly have no idea what to make of this, because in a way I'm somewhat disappointed, because I do wish there was some kind of closure there with her actual brother as we know it. So I don't really know what to think. And this is where I want to ask you. I want to ask you two questions before you kind of get to your thing that you teased me with earlier. Is that one, why do you think they didn't decide to go with Aaron Taylor Johnson? And two, I've wanted to ask you this all week. So there's the first question. The second one is, what do you think of all the characters to bring back? Why is Kat Dennings' character back? Because I know you were a huge fan of her.
She was literally the worst character in the MCU until WandaVision. I will be man enough to admit when I am wrong, and I have so far been wrong about what they've done with Darcy. I still hate what she was in Thor. She's totally pointless. But this, they've kind of like fixed her and remedied her and made her an actual important character to the show, which I really appreciate. First question, why do you think it was Evan Peters, right? That's something I'm still trying to figure out. But no, it can't be an accident because Marvel, they're so known for accidentally doing things and not, strategically planning things. I don't know. Now, is this just a fake out? Possibly. I think, end of the day, I don't know if this is going to be our Quicksilver going forward, if she's going to miraculously bring him back, and it's now going to be Evan Peters instead. I think they didn't bring back Aaron Taylor Johnson because the shock value is bigger if it's Evan Peters versus Aaron Taylor Johnson, because it's, holy crap, it's the Fox version, the one that we know for a fact is a mutant. Also, again, I'm not afraid to say the unpopular opinion. I thought Aaron Taylor Johnson's Quicksilver sucked, and I'm glad he died. I thought his performance was terrible. I remember leading up to it, you had Age of Ultron and Days of Future Past coming out within months of each other. And so you had two different Quicksilvers that looked radically different. And I was just like, oh, God, Evan Peters looks terrible because he's got this weird, like, silver jacket and goggles. He looks so stupid. Look at Aaron Taylor Johnson. He's got a blue and silver shirt on. That makes him like Quicksilver. And then Days of Future Past came out with the kitchen scene. I'm like, okay, Evan Peters is hands down better than Aaron Taylor Johnson. And then I saw Age of Ultron, and Aaron Taylor Johnson had that awful accent, which, if you noticed, is slowly coming back for Wanda. And I feel like
it is,
which I like.
That's character development at its finest. Sorry to jump in here. Like, that's really, really subtle, and it's really cool. I just, like, there's this tension here. Like, she's trying to control things because she's trying to bring back Vision, and she's basically saying none of this happened. I'm literally existing in my own bubble. I'm done with reality. We destroyed everything. I'm back now. Like, we get it. I see her just trying to hold on and trying to grasp this reality of that they fixed everything, but they didn't fix her world. They didn't fix Vision. So I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna, I guess enslave this entire town. It just didn't make any sense that it's not her. It's not Aaron Taylor Johnson. But if she's playing and casting a role, that's where I think right before all this happened, she said, as Vision was trying to hold her to account, she was saying, I'm not necessarily in all control. That's where, for me, if she was fully in control of everything and she was trying to comfort herself and reassure herself, then she would have brought back her brother as we know it in the MCU timeline. She would not have brought back somebody else, but then you have to ask yourself, well, why does she recognize him? So there's something strange going on here. Like, those are the questions I have in my mind. Why did she recognize him? But if she was in control, why didn't she bring back Aaron Taylor Johnson's version?
Yeah, I think, again, this is only like the halfway point. But this can't be an accident that we get a Fox character is the Quicksilver that she brings back. It's not an accident. It's not like they were just like, hey, you, Thomas Middleditch from the Godzilla movies, you're the new Quicksilver. It's deliberately Evan Peters. So that cannot be an accident. There's still lingering questions of, is the devil Mephisto behind all of this? What role does Agnes play in all of this? There's just a lot of theories going around. But bringing it back to the main topic at hand with the Luke Skywalker level cameo, we're not just pulling that out of nowhere. That's actually the phrase that's been thrown around. Do you think it's Quicksilver? Or do you think there's a bigger surprise yet to come? And if so, who?
Well, you just said it, and I've been trying to find this. This is only the halfway point, 5 episodes in, so the fact that this comes now, I mean, this is the what, climax in storytelling. Now we've really hit the high point of, like, here's the big mid-season twist. I would like to think, considering it's only halfway, there's something bigger at play here, whether it's a reveal of a bigger villain or it's the connection to, well, it's going to end up having to be the connection to the multiverse of madness here, which, again, is, as a viewer, they're going to have to sell it really hard, because I'm even struggling mentally to try to keep things like, what is actually going on here? What's the actual timeline? So I think they have some work to do with just general audiences, but I think they have them hooked now. They certainly have the fanboys hooked, but there's got to be something coming. Like, can you imagine, like, episode 10 comes and we're just kind of like, well, I guess Quicksilver was the big the big cameo. Like I don't see that happening.
No, I think there's a couple others. So let's run down some options that I've thought of. And not just
All
me.
right.
There's the popular names that are floating around generally right now.
Okay.
You've got Tom Holland, because supposedly that's going to be one of the. You got Black Widow, but chronologically, this will be the next movie. So Far From Home takes place a couple months after this show, and then we know that at least we're kind of getting the vibe that the next Spider-Man will be multiverse related. So whether it's a trilogy that starts with WandaVision, then Spider-Man, then ends with Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, maybe it's Spider-Man, maybe it's Tom Holland's Spider-Man. I don't think so, because the Luke Skywalker cameo was a shock factor. It was a wow factor. It was a big name that you didn't think would show up on the show. Tom Holland, while he's a big name, I don't think would be necessarily that shocking if he showed up on a Marvel show, because he's a popular Marvel character. That's also why I'm kind of ruling out Doctor Strange, because it makes the most sense that Doctor Strange would show up to me, because we know I almost said WandaVision is going to be in Doctor Strange. We know Wanda is going to be in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. It's like a collaboration. I come on your show, you come on my show. That's kind of what I get the sense it's going to happen. So, with those two seemingly obvious ones out of the way, let's go with four outside shots, from most likely to least likely. And all of these are incredibly unlikely, but that's why we're taking these guesses, because it can be fun. And if they are, all of these I think are Luke Skywalker level cameos. Number 4, Spider-Man. But you said not Tom Holland. Yeah, that's right, not Tom Holland. Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. If you want to do multiverse, you open up that multiverse here. If Wanda's creating a rift in the multiverse and basically pulling in everything, and if Spider-Man's supposed to be a multiverse story, there's no better jaw-dropping moment of, holy crap, I need to see the next Spider-Man, than that Spider-Man's come back after all these years. Again, out of left field. All these are out of left field. Also, it's convenient that I said 4, because my next one, Reed Richards, a.k.a. Mr. Fantastic. Now, actually, I probably should have put this one as most likely, because we know the Fantastic Four are coming at some point. We know John Watts, the director of the Spider-Man trilogy, is doing this Fantastic Four movie. And here's where I kind of pat myself on the back that I may have been right about something, if this turns out to be true. If I'm wrong, I'll come on the podcast and say that I'm wrong. I have no problem with that. So in last week's episode 4, when we first meet Maria Rambeau, she's walking through the hangar with the director of S.W.O.R.D., and he says, we've grounded all of our we've grounded all of our astronauts. No, there's been no space missions since the snap. We're still missing some of our people. Well, in my Fantastic Four pitch, which all of you should...
Oh, boy.
All of you should watch my Fantastic Four, pitching Fantastic Four in the MCU video. I said that what would happen and how the Fantastic Four get their powers is they go up into space, and all 4 of them get snapped away in the snap. Then, when they get blipped back 5 years later, they're back on the space station, which is now in the middle of the cosmic storm that gives them their powers. They weren't planning on it, but they also weren't planning on being up there for 5 years. And since the world's in utter chaos, it's not like S.W.O.R.D's going to go up and get a loose space station. So it's probably still going to be orbiting around for 5 years. And we know that when Professor Hulk snapped everybody back, he snapped everybody back more or less to where they were before, in relative safety. So they would be brought back to their space stations. And that would explain his missing astronauts that the director of S.W.O.R.D. teased. That's not the only tease that we got, though, for Fantastic Four. I think it was either in episode 4 or 5. He said, I'm still missing my aerospace engineer. Tell me that does not sound like one Reed Richards. Now, if you want to get really, really meta with it, what's his name? Jimmy Woo is the agent that's worked with Kat Dennings in the show so far.
Yeah.
This is my really conspiracy theory here. He is known for being Asian Jim on The Office. That's like one of his earliest jokes and claims to fame before being in Always Be My Maybe on Netflix and other stuff. A popular fan pick was also on The Office in one John Krasinski. I think it would be a fun joke is if he's the lead-in to John Krasinski's Mr. Fantastic. Now, that's my definitely stepping out there with a leap of faith. But I think we've got our first tease for Fantastic Four, and maybe Wanda's bringing them in somehow, or due to the snap, they got their powers. I think this show is setting the stage for the Fantastic Four, so I wouldn't be surprised if we get a Mr. Fantastic appearance. So, if that happens, and that's how they get their powers, calling it, man. That's what I've said that for a while. Next, Wanda's father, Magneto, played by Michael Fassbender. We've already got one Fox actor back now with Evan Peters. Imagine she keeps screwing everything up. We never saw what her parents look like. What if she thinks they died in Sokovia, but actually just their mom died, and her father survived and has been in isolation as Magneto? I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Magneto could be this shock cameo character, which would unravel everything. That would be a huge surprise. Which leads me, of course, to my number one, and least likely to happen, but would definitely be the most shocking. When all hell is breaking loose, you need someone equally as powerful. Professor Charles Xavier. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a Professor X cameo. Like a shock. Yes. X-Men are coming sooner than you thought. Like, Kevin Feige is the king of surprises. I'm sure he's wanted to use the X-Men for a while. Supposedly he's got like the whole thing mapped out. We're not getting X-Men for a while. I think this is a situation like we had with Captain America Civil War, where they had two scripts. One with Spider-Man, if they could get a deal worked out with Sony, and one without. I think that's kind of the same thing that's going on with WandaVision. They have one script of, if the Fox merger went through in time, we have some X-Men. If not, we have other things happening. I wouldn't be surprised if this sets the stage for mutants. Mark my words. By the end of WandaVision, the word mutant will be said in the MCU for the first time, finally. So yeah, those are my 4 picks. Do you see anything different? Any comments, Michael?
Well, there's several comments. All of those are, in a way, ludicrous in and of themselves, and also really, really cool, just to tantalize a little bit. Now, I just want to clarify, all of these people, you have potential John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic, Tobey Maguire's version of Spider-Man. Are we actually talking about like James McAvoy's Professor X?
Yes.
And Michael Fassbender? Because yes. That's what I wanted to add. Okay.
I don't think, as much as I would love Patrick Stewart to come back,
right.
I also don't want him to come back because Logan was so perfect, and also Patrick Stewart is getting a little too old to be our Charles Xavier. But
sure. Okay. So the thing that they have to solve here is that the idea that this multiverse has been open because Wanda is basically taking a whole town, in a way, hostage. What are the purposes of her broadcasting in different genres of television? What is the purpose of? Is she doing that, you think, or is there a greater narrative at work there?
I think it was Kevin Feige and Marvel wanted to have fun and relive some childhood sitcoms that they watched. I don't know if there'll be a larger purpose for why it's set in sitcoms, but maybe we'll find out. There's a lot of unknown factors so far on the show, obviously.
Okay, so I was wondering where you were at with that. Let me ask you this then. So, given what we know so far, and that this potential opening of the multiverse has now happened, is there anything that you can see based on them introducing this version of Quicksilver as her brother? Is the show going to? Do you see the direction of the show kind of getting out of the sitcom thing? Like they're actually going to deal with this reality, and is this something that's going to change Wanda at the moment? Like the reason why is I'm trying to think of what direction are you thinking they're going to go in, because at this point I have no idea, because depending on how you answer that, I might be able to give a better estimate on what is more likely for which character, I guess.
I think we will still get some sitcom stuff, but it'll be less and less with each passing episode, because we had the 80s episode this past week. We're going to get the 90s episode this week. I don't know if we know any sitcoms after the 90s. We know they're going up to the 90s, but I don't know if I know if we're going past that or not, or if we're going to be in the 90s for a bit, or if we drop the sitcom thing after the 90s, because if we follow the timeline, like, those type of sitcoms really peaked in the late 80s and early 90s, and then kind of, they're still around, but not to the popularity that they were with Family Matters and Full House and all those. So I think we'll get more of the mystery in the coming episodes. It's just, we'll still have the sitcom stuff, but
okay. All right. Well, in that case, I think if I had asked, I'll give my answer, and I'm curious how you'd answer this too. So I think for the sake of the general audience, because, you know, Marvel is not dumb. They've always made all of their stuff pretty approachable. I mean, heck, my parents, and this is not an indictment on my parents, they're just not involved or heavily invested. But if they can keep up and they can, you know, keep end games straight, then I think Marvel's doing a good job of catering to the majority of people and not confusing them. So I think the least confusing thing would be, in my mind, is that you would bring in something to connect to the very next thing. And I think the most likely would be a Spider-Man. And it would be, I think, Tobey Maguire. That seems more likely to me because of what's to come next and how connected we already know they're going to be. I don't see them not connecting them, so that would be my money. But my question to you is, what, aside from your probability, high probability of being right, because I owe it to you, you do call a lot of these things, what do you think would help the audience out the most? What pick do you think, like, well, okay, if they go down this direction, that would best, you know, teach the audience where we're going to go instead of confusing them?
Like, what character?
Yeah, what character being, what Luke Skywalker, yeah, for shock and awe, yes, but not like, yeah, but wait a minute, like, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, they're trying to avoid that response. So which introduction of which character do you think fits that bill of them trying to ease people into the multiverse instead of just, like, throwing it out there and just confusing them?
Dude, it's never good when I have thoughts on the fly, but I thought this might come with Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, but you're getting the wheels turning of how should a casual audience be introduced to the concept of a multiverse? Well, maybe you bring in some actor that you just happened to re-sign his contract recently in one Chris Evans and have him as the Human Torch, or an evil Captain America. Or an evil Captain America. In which case, everyone is still fresh with who Chris Evans was in the MCU, but if you say, here's him now, oh, but wait, he was Human Torch or an evil Captain America, that immediately gets to people what a multiverse is. And that's, we know Chris Evans is coming back. I said he's coming back for Multiverse of Madness as Human Torch, and I still stand by that. But if you want to introduce a multiverse like you're saying, I think that's the easiest way to do it for a casual audience like our parents who might not fully get the concept. Like, I had some people asking me, like, what's the significance of Pietro showing up? Who is this version? So clearly not everyone follows the X-Men movies, and that's fine. They've always been distinctly separate. So I think you need to have somebody that people are familiar with, but radically different. That's the concept of a multiverse to begin with.
Yeah. Okay. So based on that, I was actually going to mention Captain America because of those rumors that, you know, he would re-sign and he's going to reappear in something, but they never confirmed. Well, at least from my understanding, they didn't confirm that he was coming back and reprising his role as Captain America, unless maybe they did.
I think people assumed it. That's why I've always said it's Human Torch. People assume that it's Captain America.
Yeah. So, like, I think maybe Human Torch because of what the significance of Fantastic Four. You're starting to connect a lot of things in together. But man, I don't know. Like, this is a monumental challenge. Like, this might be one of the most ambitious projects as a TV show. Now, I know it's a long game in storytelling because obviously you got 10 episodes. But I mean, it's not like you have 10 hours to do this. Some of these episodes are a half hour long. So, I mean, this is getting really good. I will say I don't know. It's after those first two episodes just hooked me, and like there's something more. There's something more that's going on here, and I am quite impressed.
So what's actually going to happen, spoiler alert, guys, because I've seen the end of WandaVision, what's going to happen is we're going to have a repeat of the portal scene from Endgame, and you're just going to get hundreds and hundreds of J. Jonah Jamesons played by J.K. Simmons in various forms. Just go, we want pictures of Spider-Man. Go! And they all just rush into New York to start their own newspaper companies. That's how WandaVision is going to end. But I'd say that jokingly, but I wouldn't be surprised if the J. Jonah that we see in Far From Home, which takes place after WandaVision, is a multiverse J. Jonah. Because he looks different than the Sam Raimi ones which he debuted in, with the comic accurate hair and the outfit and everything. He looked different. He looked like Alex Jones. So maybe he is a multiverse J. Jonah, and we just didn't know it from the get-go. Maybe. We could keep talking about this, but we got to move on, or else we're going to be talking about this all day. Plus, I want to talk about some Dracula. I like me some spoopy. So apparently, the director of Eternals, sticking with the Marvel theme, has been approached by Universal to do a Dracula movie. However, she's going to have an interesting spin on it. She said it'll be a sci-fi western. I'm initially hesitant on this one because it sounds like such a out there concept, like a sci-fi futuristic western. But I'll trust this director because Kevin Feige trusts her. He said her pitch for the Eternals was one of the best he's ever heard. But also she directed a movie coming out called Nomadland, which is getting really, really good reviews. Plus, I just love my Universal monsters, and I want more of them. They're my favorite. Well, Dracula's not my favorite of the monsters. It's probably still Invisible Man. I look forward to it. And if you're more of a traditionalist like me, we are still getting that too with Dracula. I looked into it. We are still getting the Karen Kusama Dracula. That's still happening. The director of Jennifer's Body is still doing another Dracula. That's going to be more of a traditional take, which I think is good. These characters are malleable. They're flexible. You can do different things with them. They're like Sherlock Holmes or the Joker. You can do different facets to the character, and I think that's what they're doing here. I'm not gonna lie, I'm more interested in the traditional take. That being said, we've had so many traditional takes on Dracula, so a sci-fi western by the person that's doing Eternals, sure, I'm down for this. From everything I've read, Nomadland seems to be getting a lot of high praise and highlighting, as she said she will do with the Dracula movie, highlighting people that don't typically get the spotlight, like the marginalized and the oppressed. I would love to see a Dracula that preys on the weaker of society, the poor and the destitute, because they're easy victims to pick off, and it becomes like a village or society's boogeyman, basically. It's their version of Candyman, but it's Dracula. That could get me very, very interested. Michael, since you're the king of horror around here, what do you think about a new Dracula movie in addition to another Dracula movie?
Yeah, I'm much more. I'm honestly much more interested in the former than this latter pitch. But new ideas and the fact that there's a reputation here, I'm not going to be skeptical by default out of the gate. It's just kind of hard to picture it in that particular climate, that context. Like what is science fiction in a Western? Like, what does that look like? Does it look like a
cowboys and aliens?
Yeah, like I'm like, and you're gonna throw Dracula in there, like actual like vampire, or is it a metaphor for Dracula? Like they call this person like Dracula because of what they do. Like, does it actually mean they'll have fangs and suck blood of people? Like if they're gonna go non-traditional in the context, they might go non-traditional in the character, which would interest me more, because I like the idea of where the Dracula, like the actual history and the lore behind, the actual character itself, as a vampire, like in haunting, and like you said, I don't know, man, it's difficult. I will say I will be a little optimistic. I will watch the trailer and decide then, but I got to see Eternals. Like, you can say it's great, but like I let's see Eternals first before I go too gung ho for this.
That's true. I like that Universal, ever since they got burned hard with The Mummy in the Dark Universe, which, let's take a minute to just laugh at that stupidity. Remember that picture that had all of them together going, this is the future of our franchise, and then The Mummy came out, and oh boy, that was a movie. I appreciate that Universal learned from that really, really quickly, and are quickly going, okay, we still want to do our classic Universal monsters, but we're fine with them being strong individual outings that are completely detached from each other. Like The Invisible Man, while it wasn't my cup of tea, it did what I think this Dracula movie is going to do. A radically different take than the original that's more for a modern audience, and that's a great thing. We know we're getting a Van Helsing movie. Hallelujah! I'm the director of Overlord. I'm super amped about that. But Universal is learning their lesson and making the best possible use of these characters by not having them connected. Yes, I would love a MonsterVerse, but I don't need them to be connected. Just tell good stories more than anything, because these characters have been around for over 100 years in cinematic form, or getting close to it. They saved Universal before. If they're in dire needs, they'll always go back to the well that, basically, the replenishing well that is horror for them. So I think this is a good idea. They're encouraging creative freedom. They're just going, you've got a nuts idea? Go for it. Let's do it. As opposed to, all right, universe first, story second. So I think Universal is learning their lesson, which can't often say for a lot of studios. Now, this was definitely surprising for sure. I think can't be last year, because nothing happened last year. 2 years ago, I believe, at, was it Comic-Con? Yes, Comic-Con. Kevin Feige came out at the end of the big Marvel presentation and says, oh, by the way, we're doing a Blade movie with Mahershala Ali. Ever since then, we've heard crickets. It doesn't have a release date. It's not going into production anytime soon. Well, that might be changing, because Blade now has a writer. Well, one of the main writers that worked on the Watchmen TV series for HBO is now writing the Blade script. Okay. Yes. 1,000 times yes. Whatever gets Blade to the MCU the fastest, I'm all for. Blade is awesome, and as soon as they said Mahershala Ali, I was like, oh, yes, please. And the fact that Mahershala Ali actually came to Kevin Feige, not Kevin Feige coming to Mahershala Ali, shows to me that he really cares about this franchise and is serious about it. From everything I've read, he's been very active in the search for writers and directors, so there's this passion for him to get this character done. For those that don't know, Blade is a vampire hunter who, in and of himself, is a vampire. He's pretty awesome. He basically kills the undead. It's a little out there, but the MCU is getting out there. Now, Michael, I know you haven't seen Watchmen, but I'm sure you're at least somewhat familiar with Blade. Is this a project that you're interested in, and what do you expect from a Blade in the MCU?
Yeah, they're running out of normal people in the world. That's the thing, is that it's always funny, because I'm curious the timeline, honestly, because they always say, like, once Tony Stark came out as Iron Man, it just kind of was the domino effect to allow a lot of people to kind of be uncovered without shocking the world into basic oblivion. So I'm really curious when they'll want to do this. The idea of, like, aliens and stuff is already, that's obviously in the MCU, but we're talking about, like, more supernatural, like, you're getting closer to the supernatural. That, for me, is Blade in the MCU doing what he does. I'm wondering if they're, like Marvel has always done, they reinvent the wheel. So I'm wondering what exactly is going to be done. But yeah, I've only seen bits and pieces of Watchmen. But if you trust that movie, trust the talent, then really at this particular point, there's not a lot of actual bad things that Disney and Marvel do, like just straight up bad. At the worst, it's like it's okay, but it's never. I don't think
Captain
I've ever
Marvel?
watched seriously, I saw that twice in theaters. It didn't bother me. It didn't. It's not a bad film. Like, are we gonna go out there and say it's it's horrible? Like, no. I think that's hype. it's hyperbole in the other direction. It's just, yeah, but look at the bar they're setting. Like, I've never really watched a Marvel movie personally, and if I'm being honest, and said that was a waste of time. I really wish I had that time back. I really haven't had that for me personally, because I've watched movies like Tenet, where I ironically wish I would have had time back. I don't know, man. Like, I'll stay positive. I'm interested. Like, I like that idea that they're gonna go with, and I love Mahershala Ali. Like, brilliant casting here. It doesn't mean that it's gonna be successful, but I do trust Kevin Feige. So
I think the reason why I'm super amped for Blade is we know the universe is rapidly expanding. We're getting more cosmic soon, with Sword basically taking care of intergalactic threats. We're opening the threshold to the multiverse. Well, what if we open the threshold to hell and all the dark forces of the MCU? We've got some darker characters. We know that Deadpool is coming to the MCU, and it's supposedly going to be R. Will we see more R-rated, darker characters in the MCU soon? Blade is cool, but I think Blade slowly creaks the door open for one Ghost Rider, and maybe a Blade Ghost Rider movie, or other dark characters that don't necessarily fit with the vibe of the Avengers, like the squeaky clean Captain America, or the should be an alcoholic Tony Stark, but, well, he's dead now, but the very distinctly PG-13. And you could do a PG-13 Blade or Ghost Rider, but they inhabit a different world and a different realm. Like, Doctor Strange is the protector of the magical realm. Blade, Ghost Rider, and others, they're definitely the protectors of the underworld, so to speak. And I would be all for that. If we're expanding everything, let's expand below as well as above. Now, someone that I think would be perfect for that exploration of the below, because he seems to love his dark and edgy, is one Zachary Snyder. And he's, of course, made some waves recently with his Justice League that'll be coming March 18th. I'm not gonna lie, some pictures that we got today at least make me curious about one scene in particular. We knew during reshoots that he was bringing back the Suicide Squad's Jared Leto for some scenes, and I was adamantly against it, and I'm still kind of on the fence. Well, today he revealed the first look of what he looks like in the movie, and I'm not gonna lie, he looks terrifying, but I don't even need to see any of his scenes. He's just immediately better than what was in Suicide Squad because he doesn't have stupid damage tattooed onto his forehead anymore. That was one of the single stupidest decisions they ever made, was just those tattoos. This looks creepy. He looks like the Crow, but not as cool because the Crow's awesome. Now, Zack Snyder also talked in an interview about what role the Joker has, and I'll kind of delve more into it because, believe it or not, Michael, it's exactly what I asked for when we heard the Joker was coming back, and kind of the logic of the character and the logic of killing Robin, so to speak. But before I go on, because I've got a longish rant on that. Before we get into that, you see these very creepy images of the Joker. What do you think?
Gosh dang it, I might have to get HBO Max. That's what I...
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's immediately what I thought. It's immediately...
Holy crap!
Went through my head. Like, I went almost 180 degrees on this just because I'm like, you had to explain it to me today because I was so confused.
Because it's
you
so
said it
different. It's so different.
I really didn't know what I was looking at, but here's the thing. Kind of like Michael Bay, Zack Snyder does a very good job at hyping people up. And so I'm not all the way there. I'm not all the way there of spending money, but I'm close. What I'm going to do is let you watch it, and then if you say I need to, I will absolutely sign up for 1 month of HBO Max.
We are getting a trailer this Sunday for some reason. It's like it's 2:14, the original runtime for the movie. I'm like, that's an odd Easter egg, but okay. So I have screamed to high heaven ever since it was officially confirmed by both David Ayer and Zack Snyder that I hate the decision that they made with the Robin character in Batman vs. Superman. So we see the dead Robin outfit, and all us comic book fans are going, oh, awesome, they've got Jason Todd, the dead Robin that comes back as Red Robin. Nope, that's the first Robin, Dick Grayson. My favorite comic book character of all time has been brutally massacred, and he's dead to this universe. Thanks, Zack! By the way, Nightwing video coming in a few weeks, hopefully by the end of this week. I might actually post a full scene on the Facebook page. I have a completed scene that's just gonna bait you just enough. It's just sucker you in. But yeah, I've been pissed for a while about the fact that you have a character in the comics that was in fact killed by the Joker, just served on a platter right in front of you, but yet you chose to kill a fan favorite character in Dick Grayson. However, I always said that there is a way that Zack can explain this that I would actually be 100% on board with, and believe it or not, I think that's the route he's going with based on what he said in the interview. I said when they announced that it was Dick Grayson that was dead, was this sucks because it means Nightwing, there's no chance in hell of Nightwing ever showing up in the DCEU at all. He can't show up. It's not possible because he's dead. But if his death means something greater, then maybe. Because I made this argument to Josh. No Robin, except for maybe Damian, who is his own flesh and blood. There is no Robin that had more an emotional connection and meant more to Batman than the first with Dick Grayson. Dick Grayson was literally the heart and the optimism for Batman for a lot of years, and when he left to be Nightwing, that caused a major rift, and the character kind of retreated back to his dark and gloomy for a while until Tim Drake came along and kind of made him less of a jerk. If the reason why Batman murders people willy-nilly in Batman vs. Superman without a care in the world is because he lost basically the equivalent of a son that meant the world to him, it makes me mad that it's Dick Grayson, but I also believe it because I understand, and that's one of my favorite things about the character, is how much he means to Batman, that you can't just kill Jason, and that's what sends Batman over the edge, because Batman didn't have that relationship with Jason, but he had that relationship with Dick. And if he's going around killing people using guns, Alfred even says in Batman vs. Superman, because Bruce says, we're criminals, Alfred, always have been. And Alfred says something about, turns good men cruel. So clearly Batman hasn't always been this way. And I said I would like for a scene of Batman and Joker to just talk. Like, you took everything from me. I'll never kill you. For some reason, I'll kill everybody else. But kind of explain the reasoning for why it was Dick. Like, there is a storytelling reason why it would make sense for him to kill Dick Grayson, my favorite character of all time. But if it was the catalyst for change, and that's actually what sparks Bruce Wayne's story arc from going from murderous thug to, at the end of Zack Snyder's, like, whole 5-story arc that he planned out, Batman sacrifices himself and kind of redeems himself. If the need for redemption is sparked by Dick Grayson somehow, I'm more okay with that. That makes more sense, because then you still technically had a role for Robin / Nightwing / Dick Grayson. Even if it's not a role that I agree with, it still makes him a vital character and echoes that he's the heart of the character and that heart of Batman. And that all comes down to, what did Joker do? What are we going to get out of the scene? If it's Batman and Joker, I mean, talking a la the beginning of Killing Joke, where they're talking face to face, or for you, Michael, in The Dark Knight, when they're talking across the table. If they're talking across the table to each other about why did you do it, and Joker kind of explaining his rationale of why are you bringing kids to battlefields, why are you doing this, that, or the other thing, I'm more okay with actually, to me, that makes sense for why Batman acts the way he does in Batman vs. Superman. Still doesn't forgive Jared Leto's performance in Suicide Squad, but I think this time around it'll be better. Just by that picture, it's better. But it also explains and justifies to me why it was Dick Grayson and not some other Robin. Yeah, that's my long tangent. Would that be something that gets you more on board with the story that's been told as a whole, Michael? You still kind of disagree with some choices that have been made?
Well, I disagree fundamentally with a lot of the choices been made in the DCEU. It just adds another. Yeah, it just adds another layer on top. But I have a question though. Is it possible that the Joker, as we know it, is actually Dick Grayson?
No, because they've made it pretty clear that he is for sure dead. Because there was a lot of speculation that one of the Robins did become Joker. Also, don't put that idea in my head. Because Zack Snyder would do it. Just go, I hate Nate. Nate's a horrible person. I'm going to just ruin everything he loves. You know what? We're not just going to kill Dick. He's going to come back and be the Joker and cause all Batman's pain and misery. Because that would piss me off as a Nightwing fan. But also it would piss off all the Red Hood fans. Because that's essentially what Red Hood's character is. Not Dick's. Dick is supposed to be the optimistic one. So yeah, I could see Zack Snyder doing that. So don't wish that upon me.
Well,
it's rough enough, man.
I'm just wondering, like, and not just somebody being killed would push him over the edge, but what about just the idea of betrayal, and it's a living betrayal of it, and as a reminder, I don't know how they would explain it. I just don't. Is this because remember, like, the timeline here? It's going to be interesting to see how he directs him, but. I'm sold just the fact that Joker's going to be in this movie. Now, how long is the runtime again for this?
4 hours.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So is this whole thing like are these films like the theatrical cut, whatever this is? They're not going to be close. They're going to be basically two completely different movies, right?
Well, this is double the runtime of the original. The original, they forced it to be under 2 hours for some reason. I still think that's stupid. But also, this Joker scene we know is from the Nightmare Future scene. The Nightmare Future from Batman vs. Superman. Zack has said that, and I'm just going, do we have to revisit that? Because, well, he also said in this interview he wanted to have a scene with Batman and Joker because he thinks it would have been crazy to have a Batman with Ben Affleck with a Joker and never have them meet. I'm going, they technically did in Suicide Squad, but it's actually a decision that I kind of agree with him of the fans would have wanted at least some point for Batman and Joker to meet. And if we're not getting any more Ben Affleck Batman movies, which I still firmly believe we're not, I think he's done after The Flash, then I get Zack Snyder wanting to do this fan service. And I think that's kind of cool that he wants to do this. He said that this was not originally in his story of what he filmed, and this was one of the reshoots that they did to add to the movie. I don't think it'll be anything big. It'll just be a scene. I just think it's odd that it has to be from the Nightmare Future and not a flashback. He said we'll also get an answer as to why the Joker card is in Batman's gun in the Nightmare scene in the future. I'm just going, again, why? Why does he have to have a gun in the first place? But Snyder, I will let you tell your story. I can't properly judge your story until it's completely told. And so far, we haven't seen it completed. Just because I don't like the middle of a trilogy doesn't mean the entire trilogy is going to be crap. So, as much as I bagged on the Snyder Cut, I'm still going to have as much of an open mind as I possibly can with this Justice League. I don't know. He did also share a teaser of Victor Stone, aka Cyborg, leaping into the end zone when he still played football with some outstanding music, which got me thinking, if nothing else, this movie could be a dumpster fire. And I don't think it will be. If nothing else, we are destined to have some outstanding music. Because say what you want about Zack Snyder movies, but they're always scored beautifully. Like, I don't like Batman vs. Superman, but that's got some bangers for a soundtrack. I think after the Snyder Cut, to me it'll go Man of Steel, Justice League, Batman vs. Superman. I think I will like this significantly better than Batman vs. Superman, but I still won't love it. But I want to be wrong in this.
Yeah, this is gonna be interesting, man. I don't know what to think of. Why? I guess why does this exist? Like it's just so odd. Like it's
HBO Max subscriptions.
Yeah, it's the why behind it that I sometimes can't get around because the whole thing was bungled from the beginning. I mean, the DCEU is, I mean, it's making a name for itself. Like the one thing that is somewhat refreshing is that you're never gonna get a formula.
Yeah. Well, we bring up this last topic because I feel like it was just last week, Michael. You asked me if you had to say, what are some movie projects that are like reboot proof that will never be touched? I think I said Back to the Future because legally I don't think Robert Zemeckis will let them, and Wizard of Oz. Well, dang it, past self. Why couldn't you be right more often? Or at least wait a little bit until you're proven wrong? Come on! Because it seems like, while they're not outright stating that this is a remake, the director of 3 of the 9 episodes of Watchmen has been tapped to do a new version of Wizard of Oz. Now, I won't openly say that this is a reboot because they haven't said reboot in any of the official articles that I've read. They're saying it's an adaptation of the L. Frank Baum book, which I'm going, so Wizard of Oz then. And apparently, I didn't even notice, but doing my research, there's like 13 Oz books. So that makes me think maybe this isn't a reboot of Wizard of Oz. Maybe it's like a Narnia situation of you can pick your spot in the timeline that is the Oz world. If that's the case, I'm much more interested. Oz has had a spotty record, let's say, apart from the original movie. You've got Wicked, which is still a hit Broadway musical and supposed to be a movie sometime soon. But then you also have Sam Raimi's Oz the Great and Powerful, which is less than spectacular. The problem with Wizard of Oz has been and always will be the book is public domain, but there's certain aspects of Wizard of Oz that are copyright, so it's super, super weird. Like, if I remember correctly, Oz the Great and Powerful, when Mila Kunis is the Wicked Witch, there was like certain things that she could not do. Like the skin, the green color of her skin couldn't be a certain shade of green, or her costume couldn't look too similar to the original one. It's super, super weird. I'm not immediately opposed to this because if there are 13 other books in the world of Oz, it sounds like a Narnia situation of there's a lot of fun things to explore besides just what happened to Dorothy and the terrifying return to Oz. So in that sense, that could be interesting. Will a movie studio do that? I don't think so. I think they'll remake Wizard of Oz, but won't ever call it a remake or reboot. They'll just say it's an adaptation of L. Frank Baum's version. I'm like, was the original movie not accurate enough for you? It's something different this time around? Michael, you see they're touching a beloved classic. You mad? Or what are you doing here?
Well, I'm rather ambivalent at this point, but let me do you a favor and let me, in this next week, talk to my uncle. My uncle, a big film fan, his like passion is the Wizard of Oz. Like he has trinkets, he has almost every single version of media for this that was ever released. He's a Wizard of Oz fanatic, and I say that in a positive way. He knows everything about this, his documentaries. I mean, it's his favorite, obviously, film of all time. And I mean, the amount of actual like decor related to the Wizard of Oz would stun you. It rivals the biggest Star Wars fans. And so I'd have to ask him about this very thing, because if it eventually, makes its way through production, he'll be able to tell me all the facts and figures and why this is different and what it is. So I'll have to ask him about what he thinks about this if he has seen the news, and then I'll come back to you because, like, seriously, he's a professional. He's that guy you'd want to phone a friend if you had a $1 million question about the Wizard of Oz.
So what you're saying is he could while away the hours, conferring with the flowers, consulting with the rain?
Well done, sir. Very well done.
I may or may not have known that because I may not have been Scarecrow at one point in a high school play.
Awesome.
But yeah, is this something that interests you at all or no?
I didn't see Oz the Great and Powerful because my uncle said it wasn't that good. So I'm like, well, okay, if it's not that good, I'm not going to go see it. Considering he's the expert in my life, I will again. There's a theme tonight. I guess it's just the mood I'm in. I'll be cautiously optimistic. I'm starting to try to be a little more mature and say, no, I'm just not interested, or no, this is really bad. I'm trying to be more
About
holistic
time.
in my approach. Yeah, I know. I know. Don't get me wrong. There's still some things that I'm gonna still be adamant about. But
Like an
hey,
Uno movie with Lil Yachty producing it.
uh, listen. There are things that I can accept and there are things that I cannot accept. This is one of those things I can accept, unlike what you just said.
Although, I think I shared this on Twitter when I saw that, yes, Lil Yachty, the rapper, is doing an Uno movie. I was going, okay, that sounds dumb, unless it's about a family that slowly falls apart over one game, because I've seen some terrible things go down during Uno games. One of my former jobs, kids would play Uno, and I've never seen someone play so competitively as these group of kids played Uno. Like, if fights started, it was because of Uno. And, like, they would consult the Uno rulebook and be like, that's not how we play it. Or, well, okay, I didn't know Uno has its own cult, but Uno out. With that said, let's get into our main discussion, shall we, Michael? This week's episode is sponsored by... looking around my desk. Hard drives. I don't know. I'm blanking on stuff. Let's talk about sports. Sports. As much as I hate Tom Brady, he proved himself to me on Sunday. He earned my respect. I said I will never consider Tom Brady the greatest of all time unless he ever somehow wins without Belichick. Well, he did, and embarrassed Patrick Mahomes in the process. Although Pat Mahomes still looked pretty decent with some of those throws, if only his receivers could catch stuff. And don't think I didn't see some of those baseball sidearms. I know a former baseball player when I see one. But we're not here to talk about real sports. We're here to talk about fake people doing real sports. By that we mean best movie athletes. Any sport is fair game. Fighting, baseball, football, basketball, anything. So long as the character is fictitious. So any biopics like Ali, Moneyball, anything like that, not going to be considered today because those are real people. We need completely fake people for this. Let's kick us off with the obvious one, the one on the banner, Mr. Italian Stallion himself, Rocky Balboa, who, one of the best fighters of all time. Now, let's just treat this like they're actual people that exist in our world. Rocky's one of the best fighters of all time. If I remember correctly, he only lost like 2 or 3 times on his professional record. I remember. I know he lost to Mr. T in a fight that he really shouldn't have lost. And then maybe when he was still a bum, when Mickey wouldn't train him before he even fought Apollo, maybe he lost a couple there. But come on. When you think boxing movies, you gotta go with the Balboa. And I think part of the reason why Balboa still resonates is it's so human because at the time, it was Stallone. There's no Stallone movie I think that's closer to his heart than Rocky because the original Rocky movie was his last shot. It was his last chance to more or less make it big. And he was so insistent of, I'm the one that's got to do this. I'm the one that's got to write this because it's my story. And I think that's really why the first one works so well. And at the end of the day, Rocky's just a fighter you don't want to mess with, man. Rocky's the best. Even if he may or may not have brain damage by the way he talks. Rantlers!
Yeah, that's on my list for obvious reasons. He's an icon. Rocky is an icon in the same way that if you don't know, if you've never seen it, you still know who he is. Like, that's when you know it's powerful. It reaches multi-generations, and still to this day, which you'll talk about, well, we will incessantly talk about, like, what eventually passed on with this success of Creed and Creed 2, you still have Rocky being a part of it. It's carrying that name and that name recognition along with it. So couldn't agree with you more. It's on my list. You said everything that needs to be said. One thing I do want to ask you a clarifying question on is that what if what if a real person plays themselves, but in a fictitious movie, not a biopic?
Are you thinking like Michael Jordan in Space Jam type of situation?
Exactly who I'm thinking of.
I would disqualify that because
oh,
here's why. Because they're factoring in real world events that happened with Michael Jordan, of his retirement / maybe suspension from basketball. If you're a conspiracy theorist,
right,
like they factor in very meta / real things. So I would kind of rule out Michael Jordan. However, I don't think I would rule out LeBron James for Space Jam 2. One, because I haven't seen it yet, and two, I don't know if they'll like dwell on the reality of LeBron James or if they'll fictionalize him at all. Before we completely depart from Rocky, I gotta ask, have you seen all of them? And if so, how would you kind of rank them? What's your top? What's your worst?
Yeah, listen, this is really bad. I have not seen one Rocky movie from start to finish in my life. Not one.
You're an embarrassment to film.
I am. I truly am. There are so many things on here. I honestly shouldn't even be on the podcast. I should get down on my knees and go, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy.
Do you even know what that's from?
Yeah, it's from Wayne's World. I've never seen that all the way through either.
Okay, so, at least you know what that's from.
Yeah. So, like, I've seen Creed. I've seen Creed 2, and I think I saw, like, 80% of Rocky when I was like 7 years old. But I know of him. I think if there's anything that's like I have to give respect where respect's due. Just because I haven't seen it doesn't mean that it's illegitimate. You know, it does not mean that it's not good. So I've got to give my props there. So thank you for clarifying on Michael Jordan. By the way, I'll remove him from the list. I will just say, even though this is not. It technically would be a movie, but it was a release for TV movie with this whole series.
Those can count.
Okay. Good, because as an honorable mention, I guess, is every single kid in Rocket Power. I know it's animated, but like that was one of my favorite shows growing up, and it was right at a time where Tony Hawk was getting on screen, like on the scene, because I know like ESPN televised the X Games in the late '90s, and he landed like the first 900 ever, and it was massive and broke a lot of records for like audiences. And then this show, Rocket Power, bringing extreme sports, you know, like street hockey, surfing, skateboarding, rollerblading, snowboarding, like all these things. They're like, I've got to watch the X Games, like the Winter X Games, every year now. So for me, it had an impact, and it was always like living vicariously in a state where I couldn't do all those things. I'm like, that's awesome. So that's an honorable mention. But something that's sentimental for me. I was a runner growing up, and wait a minute, you told me I can't do biopics. Were you
going to do Chariots of Fire?
Yes, I was going to do Chariots of Fire, like Eric Little and Harold Abrahams. Like, I can't. How do I not do this? Like, they're like I don't know. Like, I'm not a huge fan of a lot of sports movies, other than the ones that are like
fine.
Real,
we'll include biopics for Michael because he's illiterate film-wise, apparently. Although,
yeah,
I will take a shot here. I have seen Chariots of Fire, and I've never been put to sleep faster. Oh my goodness, that movie is so boring. I would much rather watch March of the Penguins again than Chariots of Fire.
It is. I will say the movie's iconic, but not because it's
good.
Not because it's a page. There's a lot of symbolism, and there's a lot of meaning. There's a lot of meaning in there. But it's made in 1981. I mean, there's not a lot of films compared to nowadays that will keep my attention. 40 years ago. But yes, I was good. Okay, how about that? We'll just say as an honorable mention. Okay.
I don't like the fact that you said 1981 is 40 years ago, even though it is. I'm going, oh yeah, that's 20 years.
No, it's not. All right. So let me stop at this. How about let's do Notre Dame, a committed guy who's down on his luck but never gives up, and the whole team rallies around him. How about Rudy? Can we put Rudy on that list?
Sam.
Yeah. Can we at least put him on like one of the best scenes in movie history where the entire team, lines up and gives their jersey to allow him to play? I mean, come on. Like that grown men tears at that point when the entire team on this last day, his last game, his opportunity to get in the game, and they all sacrifice and say, Coach, take my jersey. You can have my spot. That is iconic. And it shows a commitment to the little guy, not because he's a hobbit, but to the little guy. I mean, come on. That movie will make anyone cry. So Rudy is on my list.
I gotta ask, because of your upbringing, and I mean by that your location of where you grew up, do you have any hockey-related players on your list?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I absolutely do.
Are they the Mighty Ducks?
I cannot neither confirm nor deny.
Okay, let me get some in before we go down the Mighty Ducks road that I'm sure we're about to go down.
Okay, please.
Actually, before I completely leave the original one, Rocky cannot really be said in the same breath anymore without Adonis Creed, who still, I think, just like the movie, has a long way to go to me to prove that he's just as good of a fighter as his illegitimate dad. But that's primarily because when we see Apollo in the Rocky movies, he's towards the tail end of his career, whereas Adonis, it's like just breaking into the mainstream / kind of height of his career. So we'll see what kind of road they take for Creed 3, which makes me super excited that Michael B. Jordan's the one directing it. But yeah, Adonis also, he does have a professional loss under his belt in Creed 2. I was like, what's his record? Is he a good fighter? Because we do actually see Rocky's record at some point to see what his final stat was, because I think in Rocky Balboa, which, Michael, that one you need to see. That one's the 6th Rocky movie. It's the one where Sylvester Stallone's older and hasn't fought in a really long time, but story-wise, it's the closest to the original, and it's actually my favorite, is Rocky Balboa. I think that one's excellent. But Adonis, come on. If you've got Rocky, you've got to have Adonis to just balance the scales. Plus, he's the new generation of fighter. Rocky was like, I could take all the hits and I'm the bruiser, whereas Adonis is very much like his father, whereas slip the jab, I'm quick, but when I do hit you, it's going to hurt a lot. He's the new style of fighter, the speed, as opposed to in the words of Rocky's trainer, Rocky Balboa, blunt force trauma. When you hit him, it's going to feel like he started kissing the express train. Yeah. I've seen Rocky Balboa way too many times. Let's see. Let's talk about our only, at least for me, my only non-human on my list. And some of you are going to be super, super confused, but Michael knows where I'm going because sent to my list. Air Bud, the greatest dog basketball player of all time. Air Bud, I don't think he ever missed a shot, and in true style, came from a horrible upbringing to be a fantastic basketball player, because tell me I was not the only child of the 90s that watched Air Bud and was traumatized by that scary clown man that owned Air Bud. He was terrifying so bad. Come on. I don't care that he's a dog. Can your dog play basketball better than Air Bud? No, because Air Bud is a baller. He's the best. It says in the rule book the dogs can play. Well, actually, it doesn't, but it doesn't say they can't. So, he's one of the best basketball players of all time. I don't care if you're mad.
Yeah, that I can't believe you saw it on my list, but I mean, I grew up watching them. I mean, I at one point in my life, I don't know if I haven't seen one. I've seen all of them, I think. I mean, because once you've seen one, you have to see them all.
I don't know, man. Have you seen? There's a lot of them. They still come out to this day with Air Buddies, Space Buddies, Christmas Buddies, MXP, Most Extreme Primate. Like, come on. I don't know if you've seen all of them.
Well, I guess the ones that were good. Ones that were good. Like, who am I kidding here? I don't know. The ones that were. I mean, I don't know when they start coming out in the 90s, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I saw all of those for the most part. You know, it was funny is like when you're thinking about on these, like I was actually when you saw Air Bud, I was thinking like, how can I get more creative here? And I was thinking of all like the Disney originals like movies, like
Alley Cat Strike.
Like, yeah, exactly.
Flashback. Shout out to Alley Cat Strike. You're welcome, Heather.
Wow, that is a throwback. I was also thinking like the original Disney Channel original movies. Was there anything on there?
Yeah, what was it, like Changing Lanes or something? What was the drag racing one?
Yeah, I think that was the. I think exactly that's.
Yeah, there was Changing Lanes. There was what's the guy's name from Luck of the Irish with Evil Lassie from Psych?
I don't know.
Full Court Miracle with the Jewish basketball players.
Exactly.
They were legit, and God was on their side. That's why I remember something about like the candle staying, like the generator staying on, or something like that. Yeah. Full Court Miracle, guys. Disney Channel. Is Full Court Miracle on Disney Plus? There's so many questions that I have.
There should be. That was an amazing like quality film. I thought for what it was. It's it shouldn't be that good.
Real quick. He's not an athlete, but he should be considered one. I've been searching for it forever, and I just bought it off YouTube. The famous Jet Jackson movie. I'm about to be real happy because I'm going to watch that for the first time in a very long time, because for some reason Disney Plus refuses to put that on their service, either the movie or the show, and I hate you all.
I'm not that I'm going to, this is going to be really bad. You might hate me for this, but
I already do.
Are we going to put it past Zac Efron and High School Musical? That movie was huge. I don't know if you, because, he was a basketball player. He won the state championship or whatever it was in that movie. And I remember
he was secretly the villain for the whole movie. Think about it. He comes in late, wants to steal the spotlight from people in the drama club that have actually worked and earned their spot, and yet he still wants to divvy up time between drama and basketball, which are both full-time commitments. Yet he steals the spotlight away from people, Sharpay and Ryan, that are actually trained and have studied and worked hard for this, shows no actual effort into joining the play, and just is there to hook up with Vanessa Hudgens, which, okay. And then nothing really comes of it. He's not a good person, at least in that first movie, and I still remember to say, he's got that weird off-putting tan in the second one, ridiculously over the top on the bronzer. I don't think I saw the third one to know what happens. Maybe he died or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't really care for anything after that because it just blew up and everyone was singing it. I'm I couldn't.
Dude.
Go beyond. Oh boy.
Okay, if we're throwing out High School Musical, we got to throw out one of mine and Heather's. This is Heather's favorite Disney Channel original movie, Eddie's $1 Million Cook-Off. Man, that man could slide into home plate and cook an omelet without cracking. We could crack an omelet with one hand.
With one hand. Do you remember how they advertised that too? It's we have 2 food fights in this movie. It's you're an athlete
man.
at that
Now I gotta
point.
see Eddie's $1 Million Cook-Off. But that just transitions me perfectly. Eddie can't be the only baseball player on my list today.
No.
It's just, I can't. It's not possible for me. I'll go with the general pick of, we saw more of this guy perform at the professional level, so we know he's good, as opposed to my other guy. We only see him in one game, so maybe he just had a fluky good game. The guy that we saw a decent amount, Charlie Sheen in Major League as Wild Thing Vaughn. I love Major League so much, and I just love the concept of a closer that's only good at his job when he wears his glasses. Come on. And I'm still mad we haven't gotten a new Major League with all of the original cast coming back, except this time as coaches. The Indians still suck, so it could still work. But right now,
it's basically a biopic.
But right now, unfortunately, it's not the Indians that are going to stink. It's going to be my Rockies, because I hang my head in shame at the stupidity of our management going, hey, let's give away our future Hall of Fame third baseman to another team and give them $50 million, basically for free. It's all good, guys. We're not rebuilding. But.
Yeah. I got nothing for you there. I'm a Tigers fan.
I was about to say, your Tigers aren't that good either. However.
No.
My Rockies often get beaten by the Dodgers. This man is one Dodger that I could never hate. Benny the Jet Rodriguez from the Sandlot. Oh, Benny's what all baseball players should strive to be. He encourages the love of baseball into everyone. I'd like to believe that Benny's the one that started the Sandlot, and he's the one that roped everybody in one by one. Maybe he started with the great Hambino, which honorable mention to Ham Porter. Then he invited Timmy and Tommy. And then he invited Yeah and Squints and there's the tall one. And then eventually Smalls came around. I like to believe Benny's the one that got everybody involved. Benny is the friend that we all wish we had at some point in our lives. The one that's a few years older is kind of the big brother of the situation, but is like the hero of. He's just cool, and it was awesome to see that he grows up to be the great star base stealer for the Dodgers. Who knows? Maybe he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. But at least he had sweet feet, like Sweet Feet from Holes. That's another one to add to the list. Any time I can mention Holes, I'll do it. I love Holes. If we're doing biopics, I'll throw out a name that's special to me because it's one of my favorite scenes in any baseball movie ever. Scott Hatteberg from Moneyball, because that scene is wonderful. Of Scott, we want you to play first base for Oakland. Whoa. I've only ever played catcher. It's not that hard. It's not that hard, Scott. Tell him, Wash. It's incredibly hard. Like, I laugh every single time. I just applaud going, yes. No one appreciates us first basemen until we screw up. We're like closers in baseball. No one ever notices you until you do something wrong. So anything with Scott Hatteberg, learning to be a first baseman, it touches my soul in all the right places because I love your first baseman, people. A good one can save your franchise. That's why the Rockies have sucked ever since Helton left.
I'm so sorry to hear that. Yeah, great picks. I mean, The Sandlot, one of my favorite movies of all time. One of the very few movies I had on repeat all the time as a kid. And still one of the best endings, too. I mean, the whole idea gives him a thumbs up. He has a thumbs up. He looks over at the photo, and then it fades in. Like, come on. Like, that movie is iconic for good reasons. And the interesting is that Benedict Rodriguez, a hero in real life as a firefighter.
Yes.
Like an actual actor. Like, that's pretty incredible. But I can't agree with you more. I've never actually seen Major League, so sorry. I know, what a surprise.
I think you would like it if you saw the TV version. I know you don't particularly care for swearing, and there is a lot. But if you see the TV version, I think you would really like it. It's a lot like airplane type humor.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, I know my dad has seen it, and usually my dad sees movies, I'll end up watching them eventually as well. But the Moneyball, you're the one who told me about Moneyball, and that was even before I knew anything about Aaron Sorkin.
Oh,
and
Moneyball is so good.
Watching it with my parents. I think it was like my freshman or sophomore year of college that we watched it together, and we had a blast. And so I owe that one to you. Good picks. I saw all around fantastic picks. I want to throw out if we're gonna stick with the sports theme. Obviously, that was a joke. Just see if you're paying attention.
Nope.
I want to go back to another film of my childhood. We're going to go football this time. Stick with my football theme. We just talked about Rudy. We're going to talk about two people. I'm kind of cheating here, but when I reveal it here, you'll understand. Let's revisit the 1960s and race relations in the country during the civil rights movement. And let's talk about a football team that had to deal with that and how they came together. And I have to talk about Gary and Julius from Remember the Titans.
Oh, I was thinking The Express with the Jim Brown movie.
Oh, no, I Denzel Washington, 2000, Disney movie, again, another theme. But yes, the Gary and Julius relationship and how they played off of one another, and then on the performance on the field, the emphasis, on the defense first, and not the flashy offense. In the particular film, like, absolutely love it. And for me, that was one of those ones that obviously transcended any sort of sports. And that was a greater narrative, but they're actually part of like that state championship winning football team. So yeah, they are great athletes and great characters. Remember the Titans, one of my favorite movies of all time.
Also, because I know we probably won't bring it up, not the greatest team, but I just gotta give an honorable mention for football movies to Facing the Giants. It's the only good Christian movie ever made. I'll go on record saying that, because Christian movies are garbage. They're just sermons with moving pictures.
Yeah.
They're not good, except Facing the Giants is not actually that bad. Okay.
Good stuff. Yeah.
So I have 3 more. How many more you got, Michael?
Well, you're going to have to go ahead because you disqualified about 50 of mine. So I got one left, and it's the one that we share.
Which one do we share?
You said something about hockey, didn't you?
I don't have any hockey players on my list.
Oh, you don't? Okay, so I have one more.
I don't think hockey's a real sport. I'm just kidding. Well, I'm just kidding.
I was like, oh, man. Like, wow. You went there. Yes, I got one left, and it's my favorite. It was the first one I thought of on this list.
The Goon.
Oh my gosh, you're a troll.
What's wrong with the goon?
Listen, you said things were, I don't know,
I don't know, the
memorable and
goon.
good.
Miracle.
Uh,
What's the ice princess? The one with Michelle Trachtenberg as an ice skater. I don't know.
what are you talking about?
I don't know. I'm just prolonging the inevitable.
Yes. What do you have? Fine, take the focus off me. I'm done. You beat me into
No,
submission.
you
at
haven't
this
even
point.
you haven't even said anything about what yours is.
My last one, if you want me to give my last one, is it's because from 1992, and we've actually talked about this many times, and it's the fact that I'm not actually excited for this series is
Is
because
it from 92?
yes, it's from 92. It was before you and I were born, and I know
Well,
I told you I'm not excited for this very movie, and it's because I have such this new series, excuse me, is because I have fond memories of the Mighty Ducks, and it's Charlie Conway. I wanted to be Charlie because he's a good leader. He's before D3, the Mighty Ducks, where he's terrible. And at least in the first two, he is sacrificial. He is there to just hold morale, and lead his team. He's obviously the hero. And in the first one against the Blackhawks, and he's willing to give up his jersey or sweater. In the second one for Adam, like he's willing to help coach, and then he's a teenager basically, and that's basically everything in D3. But this idea that like he was like the DNA, he's the strands that hold everything together for the Mighty Ducks. Like that was like the person I wanted to be. And I never really pursued hockey ever, but it was like that's who I envisioned. So for me, my top movie athlete of all time, Charlie Conway from the Mighty Ducks franchise.
fair enough. Figured Michigan boy, you have to have at least some hockey. It's
I
like
have
in your
to.
blood.
It's the one thing we had a lot of success in. Detroit Red Wings from the 90s, mid 90s, all the way through the late 2000s were great. I mean, they were phenomenal. So I mean, hey,
until you got beat repeatedly by my special Avalanche. If I have to
yes.
claim loyalty to any hockey team, I'll be an Avs fan, being from Colorado for so long. But yeah, I know the one kryptonite that the Detroit Red Wings have. It's the Avs.
Yes.
I do not have any hockey players because I don't watch hockey movies. I like Miracle, but I abide by my rules. My next one though is the greatest punt returner in Alabama history, because when you say "run, Forrest, run," he takes it very, very literally, and he just runs straight home. He is the single greatest punt returner of all time. He is a special teams Hall of Fame, like Hall of Famer every single time. He got the Heisman because he was unstoppable. Guaranteed touchdown with Forrest. He's just the best. Sure, there's not a lot going upstairs, but when you're a football player, you don't necessarily have to have a lot going on upstairs. So, Forrest Gump, we don't talk about his athletic prowess. Not only that, he's a multi-sport athlete. He's got football. He's a cross-country runner. He's a ping-pong champion. He's a multi-sport star. I don't want to mess with Forrest Gump in any sport. I bet you he could dunk on MJ. He'd probably be a baller in basketball. I don't know. Forrest Gump could do anything. He's a sports savant, and I don't think we give him enough credit as an athlete. He's a five-tool player if ever I've seen one.
You know, I forgot about the ping pong because that's what did it for me. The fact that, I mean, Forrest Gump is so much bigger than his college career, and I think it's a little bit of a stretch. I mean, it's a little bit of a stretch, but the ping pong sells it. I honestly never in a million years thought you would have put him on the list, but I'd say well done. It's not like he wasn't an athlete. I mean,
maybe I'm biased because the past month at work I've been doing nothing but football highlights, and I'm just like, punt returning is hard, and the fact that he consistently does it and gets a Heisman because of it, they don't just give those out to... okay, well, maybe they do. But Forrest Gump's football abilities cannot be underrated. Forrest Gump was special. Anything he could have done, and he would have succeeded at, and I think he could have been one of the greatest football players of all time had he not been in love with a horrible, horrible human being.
Yeah, that's fair.
I've always hated Jenny. I've always thought Jenny was a horrible person.
Well, she is, but, I mean... She comes back around only to die, but she comes around in the end. And hey, you can't blame the guy. But the thing is, she treats him humanely. She never treated him like another person or lowly, and that there is something to be said about that.
And then, because we gotta always bring it back full circle, at least their kid can always say, "I see dead, Mom."
Okay. Okay. That's a bit okay. All right, I gotta give you credit there. Like that's brutal. Okay, first off, that is brutal, but also pretty funny.
Where's Haley Joel Osment these days besides voice acting? Can he come back? Lastly, I've got a pair. I couldn't decide who is the better combat sports athlete, Daniel LaRusso or Johnny Lawrence from the original Karate Kid, because Daniel LaRusso won, but he won with an illegal kick to the face that the ref just happened to allow, as Cobra Kai makes blatantly clear. I think Johnny Lawrence is the much better fighter and has much better form, because Daniel only really knows defense until much, much later. I think Johnny's a much better fighter, and especially given Cobra Kai, which is like the best show on Netflix. If y'all aren't watching Cobra Kai, it's amazing. I always think Johnny was the better fighter and the better person, because if you really rewatch it, almost everything that happens to Daniel is self-inflicted. Like, there's several points in the movie that Johnny's just like, okay, I'll back off if you back off, and Daniel's like, all right, fine, I'll back off. And then as soon as Johnny turns his back, he'll do something stupid to him to egg him on and egg him on. So it's hard for me to have pity on Daniel LaRusso because he kind of deserves everything that happens to him. But he mastered karate really, really quick. And actually, another two-sport athlete, Daniel was really good at soccer. Let's acknowledge that. That's how he got Allison in the first Karate Kid. And then in the grand Karate Kid tradition, the love interest from the last movie either disappears by the end of the movie or gets broken up with by the end of the movie. There's 3 Ralph Macchio Karate Kids and 3 different romantic interests in every single one. Of course I gotta have Karate Kid in there. I'm still high on Cobra Kai for a while. Have been for years. If you had to pick, Michael, Johnny Lawrence, Daniel LaRusso, fight to the death. Go.
Yeah, I'd pick Johnny. But listen, the fact that you brought out like the martial arts, I never would have considered it as an athletic prowess, but you're absolutely right to do so. Yeah, when it comes to like technical form, I think in something like that, anything can happen once. I mean, absolutely. But when you look at more of the, am I still with you?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay. Sorry. No, my something just happened with my computer here. I apologize.
You're good.
But everything went black. Maybe it's not. Maybe, like, sorry, did I offend somebody here? I'm like, maybe I should say Daniel.
External forces going, you will say Daniel LaRusso.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, okay. But yeah, I think when it comes to like discipline and something like that, it's gonna win out on the long term. I mean, anyone can have a bad day fighting, and so if you were to hold my feet to the fire, I would say absolutely. The person with the more experience and discipline and putting more of their time in is gonna have. At the end of the day, you say fight to the death, I'm going to give it to the guy who's more disciplined.
And honestly, if we're saying all Karate Kid characters ever, I don't even think Johnny would be the best fighter. For those that remember Karate Kid 3, Mike Barnes, a.k.a. the Devil Incarnate, the most evil kid ever, Mike Barnes is probably the best athlete / the best fighter. The only reason Daniel even beat him to begin with in Karate Kid 3 is because... well, Mike Barnes more or less let him, because Daniel did his kata, which threw off Mike Barnes' routine. Yeah, I'm kind of a big Karate Kid fan. Did karate for quite a few years, so that's kind of why I'm having a leaning towards, yes, we will include them in the athletic competitions, because they're athletes too. Cobra Kai, I think, has gone a long way to refreshen the lore. It's weird to say lore with Karate Kid, but it's true.
Yeah, right?
Renew the interest in Karate Kid, but also show that if you're doing a reboot, it doesn't necessarily have to be bad. You just have to have fans of the original franchise that have love and care for it. Like, the show is really the relationship between Johnny and Daniel, and it's done so well. but also don't skimp out on the athleticism and the fighting prowess. Like, it's all there, and I'm all about it. Any last-second additions or any last-minute thoughts you got there, Michael?
Not for this one. This was really difficult. Like, this is something that's it's more obscure, but I think it'll get people talking. So I'm very curious to see what our viewers are going to say here, because undoubtedly we will have missed something that we will be shamed for or embarrassed that, like, oh my gosh, how did we miss that? So please let us know and connect with us on all the different social media platforms and wherever you get your podcast, because this program, Nate, I will say that you've put a lot of energy and effort in here in this last year. You made a lot of strides, and it has been a blast to come on board this roller coaster that you're trying to reinvent every week, and I love this, man. Like, I'm having a blast doing this with you. Thanks for continuously pushing us, and seriously, get us that Nightwing thing now, please. I am so much anticipating it.
I'm so glad you said something. So I'm kind of like, I'm not editing it order. I'm just like kind of going through the assets that I have available and kind of slotting them in like a puzzle of where they fit. So I've got like a full scene done here and a full scene done here and a full scene done there. By the end of this week, maybe Thursday or Friday, maybe Friday as like an end of the week surprise. Not even surprised since I'm saying it here. But maybe Friday afternoon, I'll drop a full scene from the video just to kind of, just to whet your appetite. And let's just say the scene I'll probably post will feature a character that y'all know and love. But not the one you may be expecting from a Nightwing/Robin movie. Let's just leave it at that for now. But yes, I'm still chugging along at that as best as I can. I'm really, really liking how it's shaping up.
Awesome.
That's all I'm going to say for now. But, what do you guys think? What are some of your all-time favorite either biopic or fictional movie athletes? Let us know in the comments below. Always like hearing from you guys. And feel free to subscribe to us whenever you get your podcast. That's Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, or YouTube. And if you haven't already subscribed to us on YouTube, we've got plenty of other content besides the podcast coming all the time. So yeah, subscribe there. And as always, stay sharp, movie guys and gals.